bass, one the trumpet, one on the sax. It might have been two on the sax, but anyway, we did some of that. Take a step back, take a step forward. That type of thing to add some space. But
it was just the playing.
It was really good. I mean, it was that, and the fact the arrangement is so good that he had it all in his head.
We totally got that swing groove down. When it hits right, it you just bob in your head kind of thing.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I love the bass. Also, the bass sounded great. Great job.
Well, the bass was interesting, and here's another kind of interesting story. And people always talk about Melodyne, how much you're going to, auto-tune a vocalist. Not so much on the vocalist. It was the bass.
Really?
Because it was an upright bass.
Yes.
So this was tuned to death to make put in tune. Yeah.
Well, it turned out okay, I guess, in the end.
Yeah, it turned out fine. No one can tell, but it just goes to show you that you can use it for other things.
Yes, you can. That's wild. I never thought about that, like the context of a record and upright bass, because upright, when you listen to Kind of Blue, the bass is not perfectly in tune ever, right? Because that's how the instrument is, right? Like,
Yes, but it's still not in tune. I don't believe in doing perfect
pitch correction.
In tune. I use Melodyne. I try to make it as natural as possible, which means getting it close, not right on. And as a result, that just makes it feel a little more normal. I just take it from where you go to where you don't notice it.
Right. I feel like with Melodyning, it's so easy to get things like out of hand and just to go too far because you're like, I'm already tuning it. Let me just pop that up all the way to 0. And not always the smartest move. You have to be judgmental.
I do it all manually, and it takes a lot of time. But to be honest with you, I think you get a better result.
Yeah, it's totally true. Yeah, Melodyning is something I'm trying to start delegating. I don't know. If I'm there yet. I'm doing it sometimes. It's not always possible to get somebody to Melodyne it in the time frame that you need it done, and it's just like, okay, fine, it'll take me an hour and a half, but I'll just do it.
Yeah, right.
But it's I'm trying to delegate things, and that's like number one on the list.
Yeah, that's a good thing,
so to speak. Amazing. I've got a couple of general questions to close us out, but before I even do that, just thank you once again for coming on the air and being so generous with sharing your stories and your knowledge. It's been really fun for me.
Sure, my pleasure, Ben.
Yeah. So just kind of looking at like creative energies and energies in general, do you have any routines, practices, anything that kind of keeps you motivated to get in the studio, or I guess even to write? Because there are days when we're happy to get in the studio, obviously, but there are other days where we're less motivated. How do you stay? How do you keep that buzz?
Well, on the less motivated days, I've come to understand to not fight it. So there are some days you just don't feel like doing something, and if you can possibly put it off, that's okay. And I've, I can pat myself on the head and say, okay, no, you don't do that today. But I will substitute it with something else that's sort of mindless that day, that I don't have to think hard about. So whatever it might be, it might be comping or something. You have to think about comping, but it might be, something that I know this is easy and I'm just doing something that's kind of, just general work and almost busy work.
Yeah, almost like admin or something.
Yeah, I mean, that helps a lot. So, but the thing is to learn not to beat yourself up because you're feeling like that, and that's pretty easy to do.
Right. We beat ourselves up. I think audio engineers are people that are very hard on ourselves and perfectionistic, and that's a big part of learning to let go of that is an important thing, but it's basically impossible to fully let go.
Yeah. The other thing is I've learned I sort of have a little bit of ADD like everybody, and I don't like to work on one thing for a long time. And thank God now the digital audio workstation, the way we work kind of in a round robin fashion on, mixing, that allows you to, if your energy drifts on one song, you can pick it up on another.
Yeah.
So that's a good way to do it.
Yeah. I'm somewhat like envious of the people that are just able to kind of like book a couple weeks out with a band and just record and fully focus on that album. I'm not able to do that. I'm working on 15 projects at once basically, but it does keep things interesting and it might be a little boring to only work with one artist for 2 weeks at a time straight,
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally relate with that. Okay, awesome. So I have just one last question for you, and it's your basic looking back on your journey kind of a question. And you could think of it as either like, what would you tell Bobby, back in the day, or what would you maybe tell somebody who's up and coming now of like the one thing that you'd want to impart of, either keep at that or don't do that. It's holding you back, or this is what you got to do to get to where you want to go. What would be that piece of advice?
There's two. The one is, if I could tell myself something to do, I would tell myself to go back and work harder on my instrument. I was kind of lazy about it because, like I was telling you before, you can deceive yourself into thinking that you're better than you are. And that happened to me a lot. So I would have worked harder. That's one thing. The other thing was having maybe a better attitude. So it's a better attitude in the studio when I was young. And I had the attitude that a lot of people have, and that's you know more than you think you know, and you want everybody else to know that.
Yeah. Got to be humble and I guess know where you're at in your career, so to speak.
Yep.
It's interesting that you said the instrument thing. I was surprised about that answer, but I totally hear it. It's the foundation of everything is your instrument, right? Like, I mean, for me, at least for people that get into audio engineering from a musician's standpoint, right? Like, it's hard for me personally to let go of the bass. Like I still gig because there's part of me that still wants to do that, even though I know I really want to be in the studio more. But there's that musician part that you can't really ever let go of. It's such a fundamental part of who you are.
Well, that's funny you should mention, because I have sort of let that go. Mentally, I'm always a musician. I always will be. But I don't play that often. And now I've gotten to the point I don't desire to. It's easy for me to go down the rabbit hole. If I start, I will go down and I won't stop. But now it's more like a job. It's like, I need a cue. It's easier, faster if I do it. And then I'll do it. But I have to say that it took a long time to get to that point. I have friends that continue to gig. I look at them, it's like, you're making your life really hard when you're doing this, because they do it almost for a living. But so I'm pretty pleased at the place I'm at now with that, to be honest with you. One of the best days of my life was the day I decided not to be a working musician anymore.
Wow.
And the reason, and I was coming off a very bad tour, like I was saying, and I thought to myself, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. And this weight lifted off my shoulder. Huh. And what it was musicians identify with the music they play, sometimes to your detriment. So I was identifying as a player, and as soon as that went away, I just felt better. There were new horizons to conquer.
Wow, that's so profound. I think, man, I don't know if you're hip to Corey Wong and the Wong Notes, but he has an interview with Victor Wooten, which was a fascinating listen, and he was talking about this, and this is something that a lot of people experienced in the pandemic. Of like, all of a sudden you're not working, and who am I, right? Like I should be, like I'm present, nothing's happening. I could just like, I don't know, just enjoy being at the park now with my son, like, but I'm stressed and I don't feel like I'm myself almost. And it's like this really unhealthy burden that we put on ourselves. And it's really hard to free ourselves of that identity issue. I think it's something I'm working on currently, like I'm in therapy now because of it.
Well, yeah, I mean, again, I don't recommend someone do what I did. It worked for me. But, I came to the point where it's like, I don't think I have to do this anymore. I've done it for a long time. I've done thousands of gigs, and I don't know that I have to do it anymore.
Yeah.
So at that point, it was like, oh, yeah, okay. I'm not identifying with this. I'm identifying with this. And my life was better because of it.
Right. You let go.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you for sharing that, and thank you for sharing everything you shared with me today. This was awesome. I really love getting to meet you in person. I mean, over Zoom in person, but it's something. and for taking the time to share all this stuff with me and with my audience. Tons of great takeaways here. So thank you so much, Bobby. I appreciate it. And I'll put a link in the show notes to the latest edition of your book. And I guess the best places to find you, I guess Instagram, Facebook, whatever, all the things that you think is important. You can just let me know.
Yeah, great. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ben.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Secret Sonics. I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. If you've been digging the show, it would be awesome if you could share this episode or your favorite episode with a friend or two, and or leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your podcatcher of choice. That's it for now. Have a great week. Take care and dig in. See you soon. Bye-bye.